the legendary Alice Cooper!
You didn't have to turn back to the Lord. You could have continued on that course, and quite frankly, you could have been another tragic rock and roll story.
I was as close as anybody ever came. Got to a point where I would go backstage and look at my stage costume and start crying, because I knew what I had to do to get into that costume to perform was now depression. It wasn't fun like it used to be. And it wasn't because of the Alice character. Alice was not the villain. Alice wasn't the problem. I was the problem. Everybody thought, well, that's the end of Alice Cooper, since I have proclaimed Christ. It should have absolutely ruined my career. And I sit there and I go, I have no idea why he let me live.
Alice, at one point, you were the #1 rock star in the world. And it started with your first hit, 18.
Yeah.
You were in multiple bands. You started out in a band called the Earwigs.
Right.
And you were in a talent contest and kind of a Beatles imitation. Then you started learning to play and becoming a proper rock band. Then you ultimately became the Spiders and then Alice Cooper.
Yeah.
But that hit changed everything. So you're in a car, I think maybe with some of your bandmates, and you hear your song 18 on the radio for the first time. What was that like?
We were the band that wasn't supposed to ever have a hit.
Yeah.
We were the notorious Alice Cooper band. We were the outlaws.
Yeah.
Every parent hated us.
And that was good for business, wasn't it?
It was. We didn't necessarily do it that way. We just ended up being that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, in that era, if you had a hit on the top 40, you were with Sinatra, Elvis, the Beatles, Simon and Garfunkel, the Supremes.
Wow.
All those people are always in the top 40. And we did a song called I'm 18. I'm 18 and I like it, right?
Yeah.
That was almost a punk anthem.
Yeah.
Having no idea that that was going to be a hit single. CKLW was the biggest station in the Midwest. It came out of Windsor, Canada. We were in Detroit. And we're driving along, and all of a sudden we hear, pick hit this week on CKLW, and 18 comes on. Believe me, we stopped the car. We had never heard any of our records ever on the radio before. And we're sitting there listening to it, and we're all looking at each other, just laughing, going, what a mistake they just made, you know. Then I heard it 2 hours later, and then you hear it again 2 hours later.
Yeah.
And then you realize it's not just a big hit, it's on the charts.
Yeah.
And you're sitting there between the Rolling Stones and Simon and Garfunkel, and there's your song.
Wow.
And to the business part of rock and roll, that gets the attention of the money guys.
Yeah.
All of a sudden the record company goes, what? That band has a hit? Okay, now we're going to put the spotlight on them.
Yeah.
We didn't expect that. The worst thing you could do to a band like Alice Cooper, as notorious we were, is give us a hit.
Right.
Because now you had to deal with us.
Yeah.
And everybody gets one for once in a while. You get a lucky home run once in a while. Second one came out, was a bigger hit. Third one came out, was a bigger hit. So all of a sudden now, we didn't chase the charts. We didn't say we got to write a song that's going to be on the charts.
Right.
We got that song on, and now the charts was looking at us.
Yeah.
And we were in that golden age where Bob Ezra and our producer knew how to take our songs and make them into hits.
So, Alice, you're at the peak of your fame, and you're hanging around the most unusual people. You've met all of the Beatles. You're meeting every rock star of the day, but not just that, but you're meeting people like Jack Benny and George Burns and Groucho Marx, and you become friends with these people, and you were even friends with Peter Sellers. And so you were telling me earlier, you'd go to dinner with Peter Sellers, and suddenly he would go into his Inspector Clouseau character
Yes.
in front of you.
I don't know if he could help himself. But a lot of comedians do that. Mike Myers will turn into this character every once in a while, and some same with Dana Carvey. He does 1,000 characters.
Yes.
And sometimes I don't know if that's a means of communication or a means of kind of hiding a little bit and then coming out. But Peter Sellers just saw the moment where Clouseau would fit right into that moment, and of course it was the greatest thing. I was never disappointed with meeting people like him, or Vincent Price was priceless. He was great. We had him come on one of the records and do a vocal on it because we needed that voice.
Yes.
And he stuck around and he did a video with us and he went on stage and did the show with us, his part on the stage. And I think that you find that you have a bigger view of these people.
Yeah.
You have a picture of who Elvis is.
Yeah.
And then when you meet him, you see a bigger picture of him.
Yes.
He's funny. You never see him being funny. He's funny. He makes fun of himself. He's a regular guy.
Yeah.
And that's the part that I get to see that other people don't get to see.
Tell me about when you met Elvis.
Well, Elvis was great. Elvis was, bigger than life. At that time in 1971, I got a call saying, Elvis wants to meet you. I mean, we had already had hit records, and he saw all this stuff. And
Were you in Hawaii at this point?
This was in Vegas, Las Vegas. And I went to the hotel.
Yeah.
And they had an elevator, special elevator, went up to his penthouse.
Wow.
So I get in the elevator, and there's Liza Minnelli, Chubby Checker, and Linda Lovelace.
What a lineup.
And me. And we're going to go meet Elvis.
Wow.
So you go up there, and kind of waiting. When he walks in the room, this wasn't fat Elvis.
Yeah.
This wasn't drugged out Elvis. This was Elvis.
Wow.
In his prime. And he walks in, and he's, hey, man. He goes over to me, he says, you're the cat with a snake, right? And I went, yeah. And he said, I mean, that's cool. You're from Detroit, aren't you? And I went, yeah. He said, come here, I want to show you something. So I go in the kitchen with Elvis, just me and him, closes the door, opens the door, takes out a fully loaded 38, Smith & Wesson 38. Yeah. And I immediately start unloading it. And he goes, no, leave the bullets in. It's all right, man. I'm going to show you how to take a gun out of somebody's hand. Because he was a karate guy.
Yeah.
So I'm standing there, and I got the gun on him, and I'm going, little devil pops up and goes, shoot him in the foot. What a story. Alice Cooper shoots Elvis. And then a little angel comes over and he says, well, don't kill him, but shoot him somewhere. The gun's out of my hand. I'm on the floor.
So he really got it out of your hand.
Shows
but a loaded gun, though. That could have gone wrong.
No, I know. That was him, though. And then, after that happens, he goes, would you like to see my most prized possession? I went, yeah. So go in the bedroom, opens up a drawer, and he pulls out an envelope. This was the picture I had of Elvis now all of a sudden that changed everything. And it's an envelope, and it's x-rays. And I go, well, what is this? And he says, well, I was leaving the Hilton the other night, and my boys are all with me, and these 3 drunk cowboys wants to fight me. And I called my boys off, and I fought all 3 of them. He says, broke this guy's jaw right here. He says, and then he pulls it and he says, and I swung around and broke this guy's ankle right there. And I'm going, this is your prized possession?
Wow.
And I realized he had no life outside of his capsule. He was a prisoner of being Elvis Presley.
Yeah.
He couldn't go to the movies. He couldn't go play pool.
Right.
He couldn't do anything.
Yeah.
And so this was his connection to the outside world. And I immediately thought, I never want to be this big.
Yeah.
I never want to be a prisoner. Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
Same thing. Same,
Who married Elvis's daughter, right?
If you put anybody and say, here's the biggest mansion on the planet, you can have anything you want. You can have drugs, you can have alcohol, you can have women, food, but you can't leave the mansion.
Yeah.
You'll find a way to kill yourself.
It's a prison.
At a point, you'll either eat yourself to death, you'll drug yourself to death, you'll do something because it's not natural to be in prison.
Yeah, that's true.
That's everybody that was in that position ended up dying, way before their time.
I saw a documentary film about Elvis called The Searcher. It's actually a very well done film.
Yeah.
And it really did show how this was a man who was searching early on in life. Interestingly, though, Elvis had gospel roots.
Oh.
And he would often call people up to his hotel suite. I read this article where I think it was Tom Jones. They were both in Vegas at the same time. Elvis would call, tell him, come on over. My Elvis isn't as good as yours. And he says, whenever he called, you'd go because it's Elvis.
Sure.
He says, we'd be up all night singing gospel
Absolutely.
songs. So there's a dual nature almost.
An hour before his show, he would warm up with all gospel songs.
Yeah.
That's all they'd do. And then he would go on stage.
Yeah.
So he grew up in that Southern gospel,
Yes.
and that's where the blues came from, and that's where this came from, and that's where he ended up. But his roots, he'd go back to those roots.
Do you think when you're young and you're hungry, like you're a young rock star, you're in your band, the Spiders, then you become Alice Cooper, you're climbing your way up, and then when you get there, then you go to the stage 2 and stage 3, and in your case, you become iconic. You're still iconic. You walk into a room, you told me you walk through an airport, people say, we're not worthy because it was in Wayne's World, and they think they're the first people that did it,
Right.
when in fact, it happens to you all the time.
Right.
But, when you get to whatever stage that is, do you think that for some of these people who start abusing drugs or even take their own life, is it because they get to the top and they realize there's nothing there? Maybe when they thought it would be there, it keeps them going, but when they get there and they don't find it, is that why they check out? What do you think happens in the mind of a person?
I think if you don't have the Lord in your life,
Yeah.
you're always going to be trying to fill that hole
Yeah.
with something.
Yes.
It's either going to be drugs, or it's going to be Ferraris,
Yeah.
or it's going to be houses, or wives, or this, or that,
Right.
or fame.
Yeah.
And you're never going to achieve it.
Yeah.
Because there's that inner thing of us that when we're born,
Yeah.
of reconnecting with God,
Yeah.
that's there. And even if you're denying it, that's what you're searching for. And,
Yeah.
and so they'll go to, the new fad is this. I'm going to
Yeah.
go be now a Buddhist.
Yeah.
I'm now going to be a vegetarian goat yoga person.
Yes.
I'm going to be this. And they go through everything
Yeah.
and still don't find it. And the last place they look is the Lord.
That's right. Why do you think it is?
Well, I think because once you say, God, you're my God, you're my Savior, now you have to answer to Him.
Yes.
People do not want to give up their God self,
Yeah.
the self that they control. I control my life.
Right.
Even people go to church. I go
Yeah.
to church. Okay, yeah, but you haven't given yourself.
Yeah.
You haven't given yourself fully. And that's where the fulfillment comes
Yeah.
from. But you can't explain that to somebody that's not searching. I mean, people are searching, but they don't want, as soon as somebody says, Jesus Christ, they go, oh, yeah, well, right, I'm going to go over here. I know people that, the most miserable people I knew were billionaires. Because they had everything and they still didn't have that fulfillment yet. Okay, I'm going to go climb Mount Everest naked. The 3 biggest billionaires in the world are in space.
That's true.
I'll go into space.
Can't
Maybe
find
that's
it
where
on
I'll
Earth.
find
Let's
it.
see what's up there.
Yeah, exactly. Isn't that weird?
Yeah,
It's like a James Bond movie.
Yeah, it's true. And all around the same time, too.
Yeah.
It's an amazing thing that, people chase after these things. Young people today, a poll was taken among them, and they said, what do you want more than anything else? And they said, to be rich and famous. And Andy Warhol, who you knew, once made his statement, it's attributed to him at least. One day everyone will be famous for 15 minutes,
Right.
something along those lines.
Like that.
And today, that literally is true for some people.
Yeah.
Suddenly you're famous online because you posted this video that went viral. You become a so-called influencer. And this is their whole goal in life, chasing after fame. But look, you've been there. You've done that. You've bought the T-shirt. In fact, you've been the T-shirt. And you're saying that what you're really looking for is God. Am I hearing you right?
If that's not your final goal, and that should be the most important goal,
Right.
everything else is secondary. Everything else is thirdary. Everything, I always said this before, and a lot of people don't like the statement, but if I were going to put what's important to me in order, Alice Cooper would be about 5th.
Yeah.
Once you've answered that knock,
Yeah.
and once you've committed to that, and once you start realizing how merciful that we've been treated,
Yes.
and and how much grace we've been given. When you look back at your life and go, yow,
Yeah.
You
Well,
know.
you've dodged a bullet more than once. When you were a young man, you had a very serious surgery. You still have a scar.
Yeah.
And your parents and you, of course, as well, all believe that was a miracle.
Yep.
But then fast forward later in your life, you're at the peak of your success. You're an iconic figure and you got heavily into drugs. And you're in a room and you've got a rock of cocaine, like the size of a softball.
Yeah.
I recall you saying something
Right.
along those lines. And you're using it. Your wife effectively has left you. She's
Sure.
moved to Chicago. She says, I'm done with this. And you look in the mirror, and what do you see?
I had been awake for about 4 or 5 days.
Yeah.
And I was up on the top of Beverly Hills in my big mansion.
Yeah.
I had a pipe, a rock, and a pistol.
Whoa.
And all my wife's dresses hanging up around the room so nobody could look in because you're paranoid as all get about police coming. You've got your cocaine. And I'm sitting there going, this is it? I've alienated everybody. I've got my cocaine now, though, and I've got my gun. And then I go in the other bathroom, and I look in the mirror. Now, to this day, I don't know if I had the Alice makeup on,
Yeah.
but I looked in the mirror, and the lines that come down from the makeup
Yeah.
were blood.
Yeah.
And I was probably hallucinating,
Yeah.
but I flushed the rock down the toilet, right? Flushed it, went to bed for 4 days.
And that was an expensive rock, worth a lot of money.
Probably still owed money on it. And finally called up Cheryl and I said, I'm okay now, I'm back. And she goes, not that easy.
Yeah.
We finally got to a point of her saying, Christian counseling,
Yeah.
and this and that, you set it up. I want to know how serious you are about
Yeah.
this. I set it up with Lehman down in Tucson, and we started going Christian, and it took 5 years before she realized that I was not going to fall back,
Wow.
into doing cocaine and all that. But I understood that. I could totally understand why she would be, she loved me, but she was suspicious. And any drug addict will tell you that drug becomes like oxygen. If you don't have it, you'll sell everything in your house to get it. I mean, it's an addiction
Yeah.
beyond addiction. And once it's gone, you don't miss it at all.
Yeah.
I mean, once it was gone, I had never even, it was just gone,
Yeah.
But I mean, when you're addicted, you are attached at the hip, and honestly, nothing else is important.
Wow. When you were younger, you're just getting started in your career. You met Frank Zappa.
Yeah.
He was going to record you. He says, do you have an agent? He said, we don't have one yet. So you met Shep Gordon, and you walked into a room, and 3 iconic rock stars were in that room. Who
Right.
were they?
It was Jim Morrison, Jimi Hendrix, and Janis Joplin.
Almost like the Mount Rushmore
Yeah,
of
exactly.
rock.
All dead at 27, by the way.
Yeah, so they're in the so-called 27 Club.
Right.
And, now, and since then, of course, Amy Winehouse
Right.
is joined that so-called club.
there's
Brian
about
Jones,
20 of them.
Yeah, there are. Brian
Yeah.
Jones from the Stones and Kurt Cobain,
Cobain.
all tragically dead at the age of 27. But you walk into this room of these iconic rock figures, and they were so talented. I remember you told me each one kind of was an innovator in music, weren't they? I mean,
They were the 3 most influential people in rock.
yeah,
I mean, other than the Beatles and the Stones.
yes,
They were the 3 that were everybody knew who they were.
That's right.
And Jimmy did something nobody had ever done, Jim Morrison did something nobody had done, and Janis Joplin did.
very true.
So there they were, the most creative people in the building. Nobody knew
Yeah.
at that point they were going to be dead at 27.
Yeah.
But it got to a point
And in
where
a short period of time.
they did so much iconic music in
Yes.
that time. And maybe it was that whole James Dean live fast, die young, and have a good-looking corpse.
Right.
But that was kind of the attitude.
Right.
Nobody wanted to get to 30.
Yeah.
When I hit 30, I went, I'm washed up.
Yeah.
Nobody ever thought past 30.
No.
Because you went, oh my gosh, what am I going to do when I'm 30?
Yeah. You know, my perspective as a fan, I'm a few years younger than you, not that many, but, I grew up listening to all this music, admired all these people. So in a short period of time, around 1970, the Beatles break up. All these rock icons die. I was using drugs at that time. I was smoking a lot of weed, using LSD. And in my mind, to me, it was like, this era is over. This is all empty. And that sent me on a search.
Yeah.
Kind of a process of elimination.
Sure.
What is the meaning of life? Was a 17-year-old kid. I said, well, it's not in drugs, sex, and rock and roll. Been there, done that in my own little version of it. It's not in the affluent world that my mother lived in, and she was friends with John Wayne, and she had a friend who was close to Frank Sinatra's wife, so she knew Frank. So it's not in that world, that affluent swinging world. Where is it? And then I came across a group of very outspoken Christians on my high school campus, sitting around in a circle singing songs about God. I thought they were delusional, but for the first time in my life, I thought, what if they're right?
Yeah.
When you realized you needed Jesus, and you were raised as a Christian.
Oh, I was the
in
prodigal
a Christian
son.
home.
I mean, I grew up, all my friends were Christian kids.
Right.
I was in church Friday night, Wednesday night,
Yes.
Sunday, all day Sunday.
Yeah.
All my friends were Christian kids. And we grew up together playing baseball and doing everything you could possibly do. And then when the band accidentally took off, 1 in a million chance that your band's going to make it.
That's right, a lot don't.
And we went to LA, and LA was built to destroy bands.
Yeah.
Because all of a sudden you realize that your drummer's been gone for 3 days because he went to a party in the Hollywood Hills. You may not see him again. But our band stayed together.
And the competition.
Buffalo
Springfield, the Byrds, all the, every band.
We were up against Led Zeppelin.
It was like the golden era of rock.
Pink Floyd.
So to break through then was not a small thing.
Well, it was just to get noticed was a big deal. But I mean, the thing about it was 1 in a million chance that you're going to actually make it in this business. We were at that golden time when we came along with something that everybody wanted.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were not peace and love. We were the other side.
Yeah.
We were the darker side.
Yeah.
But there was a sense of humor to it.
Yes.
And people started getting the sense of humor that this dark vaudeville was pretty funny. It had both things in it.
Yeah.
And so, I went as far away as you could get.
Yeah.
I became the poster boy for what was wrong. The 700 Club was burning my albums. Said, this is the worst person you could ever possibly.
Did you like it at the time when that happened?
We were laughing. I almost wanted to go on the show on the 700 Club and go, okay, what book do you want to talk about in the Bible? Yeah. Because I grew up in the Bible.
You could have given them a run for their money.
But I went as far away as I could. Became an alcoholic. Didn't realize I was going to become an alcoholic. You were just drinking beer with the boys. Every day. Different was that they could stop, I couldn't. And that beer was constant now. And it was not alcohol, it was medicine now.
Almost like a prop to you.
And it was a prop, but I mean, it was a good prop. I was never drunk, I was never angry, I was never mean. I was always that Dean Martin kind of cool. Until it started throwing up blood. Now, Harry Nilsson had already died. My Hollywood vampires, all the guys I used to drink with, were all dying.
So let's talk about the Hollywood vampires. So
it was
Harry
a drinking
Nilsson,
club.
Keith Moon,
Harry Nilsson,
Mickey
John
Dolenz,
Lennon, Mickey Dolenz, Bernie Taupin, and anybody else that would come into town.
John Lennon occasionally?
Yeah, he would come in, and we would sit there and we would drink every night at the Rainbow, last man standing kind of thing. And when that kind of broke up, because everybody went back out on tour, half of them were dead. And still, we went right on because I was in control of this drinking. At least I thought I was, until I realized I really wasn't in control. It was now medicine, and I didn't even like the taste of it anymore. But I had to have it. I woke up one morning, threw up blood, and Cheryl goes, "Party's over." And I was in an institute, to stop. And you know what? After 2 days, I felt great. But I kept going. When I get out of here, I'm going to go back to my thing, and it's going to be everywhere. I came out of there, never once had a fallback, never fell back on alcohol, never fell back on drugs. 39 years, 38 years. So God literally took it away from me.
So you don't describe it as you were cured, you say you were healed.
Yeah, people would say, well, you're a cured alcoholic. And I go, no, I was a healed alcoholic.
What's the difference?
Well, God took it away from me. Even the doctor said, it's impossible that you don't at least fall off the wagon 3 or 4 times because you're the classic alcoholic. And I said, what you don't understand is that God took it away from me.
Yeah.
I said, it's a miracle. After a while, though, they went, you know what? God took it away from you. Because they said, everything about your life should be deception. That's what an alcoholic and a drug addict does. They put on this air that they're cured, but back here they're doing this and they're doing that. That never happened. And so even the doctors were going, miracle. You're a 1 in a million case. And I went, well, I said, God works like that.
I think people are really surprised to hear that a lot of people don't know that you believe in Jesus Christ. It still comes as a surprise to people. And yet, not only do you believe, but you have a strong faith in him. You've established a center for young people called Solid Rock, where you're trying to really help turn people, get their lives turned around, turn them toward God. You don't hide this in any way. So who is Jesus Christ to you?
He's the core of everything. Mm-hmm. He's life itself. He's the light. If we don't all revolve around Christ, then we're way out in space somewhere. Mm-hmm. He draws you in. He's the light. You're drawn to that light. And it's nothing you can explain in words. It's something that happens to your heart where all of a sudden you realize who this is. And you realize, oh my gosh, I'm not worthy of this. Talk about I'm not worthy.
Yeah, I'm not worthy.
We are not worthy.
Yes.
And yet, still, being hung on the cross, he knew your name. He knew my name. And that made me go, how can I not believe in this? He changes your heart. Now, he didn't say, and now that you're a Christian, you can no longer be in rock and roll. His plan was, now you're a Christian, go be in a rock and roll band, but follow me. Be Alice Cooper.
Yep.
And that's what Christians don't understand. I can be Alice Cooper, and I can't tell you how many emails I get saying, that song you wrote, Hey Stupid? Yeah, changed my life. I was going to kill myself. That song spoke to me. Some of the songs that don't make any sense at all, they go, I turned to Christ because of that song. And I go, that song? what? It spoke to them differently. It said something differently. So now, when I write, I always try to have some lyric pointing towards Christ. Some lyric. At one point, we did an album called Brutal Planet and Dragon Town. And what it was talking about was, it was a heavy metal album. This is so cool, man. It's really. And then Christian kids started listening to it and going, this is a Christian album. It's talking about how this is a brutal planet. And Dragon Town is the result of it. If you get one shot, you don't get another chance. If you end up in Dragon Town, there's no way out. But Brutal Planet's pointing out all the things that point to Christ. The horrible things, but the things also that point to Christ. That album and The Last Temptation, which was another album about that, it was written sort of like Something Wicked This Way Comes. The circus comes to town, the kid goes to the circus, and they try everything to get him to join the circus. Right? And at the end, he doesn't. Right? They were being sold in Christian bookstores. And my record company couldn't figure out why. They're going, why are we selling records in Christian bookstores? Because it was Christian albums. Wow. 2 or 3 of my songs were used like in choirs, a song like I Am Made of You, Salvation. There's on these stories, a murder mystery, but there's a song called Salvation, how the murderer is going, is there any chance for salvation? I guess, well, that's the song that, So you did all these horrible things, but yeah, there is a chance for salvation.
Yeah. What would an older Alice say to a younger Alice? Or maybe I should say, an older Alice say to a young Vince? You know, Vincent Fournier, right? Am I pronouncing it
Yeah,
right?
Fournier.
Fournier. I think I pronounced it wrong twice, right?
It's okay. It could be Fournier,
Yeah.
Fournier.
So Alice speaks to young Vince, who has dreams of success and fame and fortune and all that. And now here you are, you've been there, you've lived it. What advice would you give to a younger you? And really, in effect, to someone that's watching right now who thinks this is where it's at.
If I knew it was going to end up where I was at that point, I would
Yes.
say do exactly what I did. I became an alcoholic and a drug addict for a good reason. I didn't know it was a good reason, but I didn't know God was going to use it.
Yeah.
I can now go into a place and talk to kids about drugs and alcohol, and they can't say, well, what do you know about it?
Yeah, you've been there.
I did everything,
Yeah.
okay? I've been there. I almost died from everything that I did. I can speak from experience now. I think God used my alcoholism and my drug addiction and said, yeah, you're going to go through this, but it's going to be something I can use later.
Yeah.
And I sit there and I go, I have no idea why he let me live,
Yes.
except for this fact that I can talk about it now and I can give him all the credit.
Yeah. Our setback can turn into a setup, and God can use it, and you speak from experience. I mean, the Apostle Paul was a brilliant orator and communicator, but in almost every time he spoke, he just told a story.
Yeah.
Like, this is who I used to be.
Yeah.
I hunted down Christians. I killed them. And Jesus came to me on the Damascus Road, and he tells a story. And, you know, there's power in a story. And you have one of the most amazing stories I've ever heard. So maybe there's a young person right now watching, and they're almost where you were, or maybe they are where you were when you were in that room and you had the dresses up, blocking out the windows, and you're at the end. You've got a rock of cocaine, you've got a gun. And what would you say to that person right there? Here's what you need to do.
For one thing, I don't know one drug addict that ever said, what a great idea. It sounded like a great idea, and you do get that momentary buzz, and you feel like euphoric,
Yeah.
and you feel wonderful for a little while. That euphoria turns normalcy. You're in this euphoria. Here's normal. You go up to the euphoria, and you come back down to normal. Pretty soon, you're living in euphoria. Normal is depression. Depression is black depression. That's where suicide comes from. I don't know one alcoholic or one in rock and roll or in movies or anybody you've ever heard of that said, good idea. It's the most unfulfilling thing there is. And yet, Satan uses it pretty well because it's a thrill.
Yeah.
What do you got? What do you got to lose? You know, here's a thrill. I would say to him, and kids are smarter now than they used to be. Unfortunately, their world is more dangerous now. When we were kids, if you got in a fight, you got a black eye, bloody nose, and next day, a little respect. Now, somebody might drive by your house with a machine gun. When we were kids, if you got in trouble with a girl, you got a penicillin shot. Now you die. The ante's up on everything. So these kids have got to be smarter. And I think kids can look at our drug problems and go, I don't really want to get involved in that. My thing I would say to them is when you hear that knocking at the door, answer the door. If the Lord is knocking at your door, answer it. It's the best thing that you could ever do. And you can avoid all this insanity, you know. Listen for the door.
Yeah. I think Jesus summed it up perfectly when he said, the thief, speaking of Satan, comes to steal, kill, and destroy.
Yeah.
But I have come that you might have life, and that more abundantly. You know, the Lord says in Scripture, behold, I set before you life and death, blessings or curses. Choose whom you will serve. So it's a choice. But then I love how that verse goes on to say, choose life. So it's almost like the Lord saying, okay, here's a test. Here's the correct answer on the test. Make this choice. But it's up to us, isn't it? He's not going to force us to believe. You didn't have to turn back to the Lord. You could have continued on that course. And quite frankly, you could have been another tragic rock and roll story.
I was as close as anybody ever came.
Yeah.
When I went into the hospital, the doctor said, we'll give you a month. before
Really?
you're joining your buddies.
Wow.
Because, I mean, you just can't treat your body like that. And on top of it, I'm touring. So it's a constant flow, constant energy, constant this, constant party. And that sounds like fun, a constant party. Got to a point where I would go backstage and look at my stage costume and start crying because I knew what I had to do to get into that costume to perform was now depression. It wasn't fun like it used to be. And it wasn't because of the Alice character. Alice was not the villain. Alice wasn't the problem. I was the problem. Alice was kind of the relief because Alice didn't drink on stage. Alice didn't do drugs on stage. I was the one that, Dr. Jekyll was the problem, not Mr. Hyde. Mm-hmm. And really, the only cure I had was Jesus. And the fact that I can still go out and play the character, and I can still go out and do the shows, and have fun doing it, and know that I'm still helping people out in a way. People that you can look at it and say, wow, I get letters like this, if you can stop drinking, well, I can. That's like saying if Keith Richards, if you can stop doing it, well, then everybody can. So God made me that exception, where he said, you are going to be known for this, and then you're not going to do it anymore. People will look at that and go, wow, there's hope. I can come out of this. And then I think once you get sober, then you can start recognizing Christ. It's very hard to recognize Christ when you're high, because everything's fine then. It's when you're sober is when you start going, what's important now? Oh, wow, I need to go after the light. I don't need to go after this anymore. I don't need another car.
You said there's like Alice Cooper on your list is like fourth down on the list. What's number 1, 2, 3?
Well, I think your relationship with Christ is the number one thing. And of course, your family. My family are all Christian. My wife is just, she's like walking in a Bible herself. And yet she plays Mademoiselle Guillotine on stage, and she plays all these characters. The kids are all in show business, but they're all Christians. So when people say to you, they say, who are you? I go, well, first, I'm a child of God. Second of all, I'm in a rock band. It's not, I'm Alice Cooper, the rock singer, and I'm a Christian. The priority is that I'm a child of God. Oh, and then I'm a rock singer, and I do this, and I'm a father, and I'm a husband. So in that order, I think, is really who you are. If that doesn't come first, there's something wrong.
I watched a documentary called Roadrunner about the life of Anthony Bourdain.
Yeah.
And Bourdain, was a celebrity chef. He had a best-selling cookbook called Kitchen Confidential. Then he got his TV show on CNN, Parts Unknown. It was actually a really beautifully shot show. He traveled the world. He would often ask people, what makes you happy? He interacted with a lot of people, lived a life that many would dream of.
Sure.
But in this film, with so much footage to draw from his life, he almost tells the story in real time because it's his voice telling his own stories that's unfolding. And at one point, Anthony Bourdain is on a beach with Iggy Pop, who you know.
Yeah.
And so they're talking, and then the next scene, they're in a restaurant. Anthony asks Iggy, what thrills you? And I thought Iggy Pop's answer was really interesting. He says, this is really embarrassing. And I found that interesting, that this is embarrassing, almost like you wouldn't expect me to say this,
Sure.
But it's being loved and actually appreciating the people that are giving that love to me. And Anthony Bourdain looked a little surprised, almost like he didn't know what to do with that. But that sounds like Iggy is onto something.
Yeah. I think Iggy's seen the world. He's seen all of it. I grew up with Iggy pretty much in Detroit, in those days. And we partied harder than anybody. But there comes that point in your life where, when you're lying in bed somewhere in Wichita on a tour bus, where you go, what is this about? Is this really it? Is this all there is? There's that song, Is That All There Is? Because it can't be. There must be something better than this. And I think that's when you start hearing the Lord knocking. Because, there's nobody on this planet that's that he hasn't knocked on the door. You know, again, you said we have a choice. Do we keep pursuing what's in the world? You know, seek me and everything will be added to you.
That's
you know,
right.
when I started proclaiming Christ, everybody thought, well, that's the end of Alice Cooper. We have never done better. I mean, on every level, since I have proclaimed Christ. It should have gone the other way. It should have absolutely ruined my career.
Well, especially because of a persona and a trajectory that people may perceive that you're on.
Yeah.
But in reality, they don't realize it's a performance. You take on the role of a character.
Sure.
But you've redeemed it and turned it around
Exactly.
to use as a tool for good.
I think that's how it's been used. You know, my show has always been a good against evil. Alice plays the villain. And what happens to him? He gets his head cut off. Because the bad guy's always got to get his head cut off. And then what happens? He comes back. White top hat and tail, balloons, and he's redeemed. And just that simplicity of that will connect to people go, oh, he can be redeemed. He's not, they can't kill him. Well, you can kill his body, but you're not going to kill his spirit. You know, and that's always been the ongoing theme of Alice Cooper, has been redemption at the end.
Alice, could you define what redemption is to you?
Well, none of us deserve redemption, but Christ on the cross, if that blood is the most precious thing, that is your redemption. He was the perfect sacrifice. There's no sacrifice we could make that would be better than the Son of God dying for you.
That's right.
Understanding your sin, understanding that you're going to sin after that, and yet still paying the price. What possible else could you do? You can't ever repay that. And once you realize that, then you are connected to the Lord. He has taken a residence in your life. And now he's with you at every moment. And you make mistakes. The craziest thing I've ever heard is people being anxious about, well, I can't go to that church because there's so many hypocrites. Well, the church is not based on the hypocrites. The family of God, we try not to, but we make mistakes and we sin. The church is based on the one that didn't sin, the ultimate sacrifice. We all look to him. That's what the church is based on. And we're imperfect. But he was perfect. And that's why he was the perfect sacrifice. So redemption is giving into that and saying, Lord, you're right, here I am.
Exactly. When Jesus died on the cross, he said, it is finished. It was a complete payment. It wasn't like, here's a down payment, we'll work out the rest later. A complete payment. And the word finished is interesting. It comes from a single word, tetelestai, which means it's completed, it's accomplished, it's done.
Yes.
You know, like the old song says, Jesus paid it all.
Yeah.
All to him I owe.
Yeah, that's true. There's no way of repaying God back except for acceptance. You know, and again, we go and we live this life and we're in an everyday situation where everything comes at us in a million ways. How do you deal with it? Well, you lean on Christ.
We're so thankful for how you speak up for your faith and taking the time to even do this interview. I want to thank you for that.
Well,
so much.
you know, for you, I feel a connection with you. Everything we talked about, from Mad Magazine
Yes.
to Bullet Mustangs
Yes.
to West Side Story,
Yeah.
we're pretty connected.
Yes, for sure. Totally.